Hey, research patrons, it's Maria. Wanted to make a more personable video today. I've been writing a lot of HTMA reports and wanted to get outside and get some fresh air. So I'm sitting on the porch here and wanted to just talk to you all about some of the things I've been learning about and exploring in my research without having to write a really research heavy blog post that I'm going to be giving you some little early insights into some research I've been doing on temperature and the role that hormones and temperature play with each other, and therefore the role that hormones and temperature and migraine play with each other, since we know that so many women get migraines at times of the month when their hormones fluctuate, and also consequently, although this is not something I had been aware of, when their temperature fluctuates. So I will be posting soon here, more details of that research that you can read, and you can follow the links and you can do a deep dive into that research, which I recently just found out about through the website on Wilson's temperature syndrome. I know at least one of my followers has heard of Wilson's temperature syndrome. It's pretty obscure. Dr. Wilson, I believe he's out of Vermont, for decades has been helping people with multiple health issues, from allergies and eczema to digestive issues, and migraines being one of the key areas he helps people. And he does so by way of a focus on the thyroid hormones and the way in which temperature, which is regulated by the thyroid, because our thyroid gland regulates our metabolism, the way in which temperature can affect enzymes and the chemical structure of enzymes. So I thought this was completely fascinating. Not only fascinating that he has found a method and a way to support people to completely reset their metabolism with the use of T3 thyroid hormone instead of like the desiccated thyroid that contains T4 and T3 both. But he has a way of, in a graduated fashion, resetting someone's whole thyroid and metabolism using T3 for reasons that I'll explain in more detail in the next post that I post here soon. But the key point I want to drive home here that's been like really fascinating to me, that I've been meditating on, and that I love having any new way, any new angle, any new perspective to try to understand the constellation of symptoms that people have, which, really any kind of enzyme deficiency system, which so many health issues are based in enzyme deficiencies, right? Is it just really nutritional deficiencies or nutritional imbalances caused by toxicities that are the reason for why people's enzymes don't work very well? That's sort of the general lens and angle that I take. And here, tissue mineral analysis is great at revealing what those toxicities are. For example, heavy metals can interfere with and displace other nutritional elements on the receptor sites of the cell, therefore interfering with enzyme function and having this cascading effect on our neuroendocrine function, our hormonal balance. But is there another angle to all of this that we're missing, that isn't just about the ability to absorb nutrients or the actual nutrient content of foods, or isn't just about how well those enzymes are functioning from a nutritional standpoint? Is there something else, another factor that's playing a role in all of these weird symptoms that us modern humans have? So a lot of you who follow me, have migraine, but I know, of course, from coaching people with chronic migraine, that people with chronic migraine have all kinds of other weird symptoms, from psoriasis to insomnia to digestive issues, ranging, of course, from constipation to diarrhea to, parasite infections, mold sensitivities. The list goes on and on and on. And while this Wilson's temperature syndrome point of view or hypothesis for disease causality probably, won't address all of them, I find it really compelling, because here's the key point that Dr. Wilson makes. It's that basically when our temperature changes, this affects the actual structure and functioning of our enzyme systems. So with this in mind, if our thyroid was not functioning optimally, which we know is a liver issue since the liver processes the thyroid hormones, which of course is also a pituitary issue, all these issues are interrelated. But if the thyroid is hypothyroid or hyperthyroid, or just simply imbalanced, and therefore our metabolism and our temperature, our body's ability to regulate its temperature is compromised, and there are sudden drastic fluctuations in our temperature, this will affect how well our enzymes function. And for me, not only is this like a really interesting way to look at things and very new to me, but it's also fascinating because if we can actually reset the system with T3 or perhaps with other means that we have yet to discover, I want to research this more. There's actually the opportunity for people to heal something like migraine for good. So this is obviously interesting to me because even though I don't have migraine symptoms anymore, when I'm dependent on these supplements. And so I'm always looking for a way that I could get out of the trap of taking endless supplements. And, I want to know if there's a way to completely heal, which of course I believe is possible in an infinite universe, then I want to know what that is because I'm really tired of supplements. I'm bored of supplements. I think studying the nutritional relationships is fascinating, and it is certainly very encouraging and exciting to see people feel better by taking certain supplements. But the reality is that, like, even though HTMA is a great test, or you can get more additional information from urinalysis or blood analysis, it's really a bit of a guessing game. And as far as like how much a person needs. So say, for example, we can see that a person is deficient in a certain mineral, we can tell that they certainly need more. The reality is we don't always know how much more of a nutrient someone needs because, for example, with histamine, if you have a high load of histamine in your system, and say as an example, you need copper to process histamine. So the amount of copper you need isn't dependent just on whether you're within the normal range of copper, what is considered copper sufficiency, but what the overall body burden of histamine is, right? So there's a lot of dynamics, and I love studying the dynamics because I think that taking nutritional supplements without these the dynamic relationships of minerals to each other in mind, or without thinking about the dynamic relationship of what the standard dose of a given or the standard recommended daily allowance of a given nutrient is, without keeping in mind how much more of that nutrient might be needed if you have a high body burden of something that your body needs to clear out, right? Those dynamic relationships are fascinating and so important to keep in mind. And a lot of headway can be made by keeping those in mind. But again, because they're dynamic, this is really complex. And if there's a way to overcome all of that complexity and really simplify, I'm looking to do this in my life wherever possible, right? But I just find it really compelling that something like supporting the body's ability to regulate its metabolism and temperature through the thyroid, and in the case of this approach through the T3 thyroid hormones, can reset the system sufficiently to where the enzymes actually start working properly. So I'm going to share with you all that information I've been finding out. I haven't actually tried this. I'm not a big fan of pharmaceuticals, so I've never tried T3. I think I have one client who said she had tried that approach and it didn't work for her. And learning more about the reasons why that approach might not work for some people is also interesting, because Dr. Wilson is saying your adrenal system really needs to be working well and up to par for this T3 therapy to work. But I wanted you to know about Wilson's temperature syndrome, and I'm going to be supplying a link down below of a very lengthy PDF for those of you who like to do a really deep dive. And then in the next post, I'll be breaking down the salient points that I found really insightful. There is a chapter there on migraine, and he does mention and point out some interesting case studies of migraine that I find compelling, that lend little clues to other approaches and new perspectives that we could get on how to really tackle this problem that seems so complex in a way that might be a little bit more simple and straightforward. So things like going to the sauna, like I did recently. I just went to a Society Hotel sauna and cold plunge. And I was talking to my husband because he does a lot of geeking out on fitness and well-being as well. And he was telling me that after 2 minutes of sitting in this icy cold water, if I go right into the sauna, then essentially I'm kind of bypassing my body's own ability to learn how to normalize its temperature, because I'm going into a warm room that is essentially giving my body heat that it would otherwise have to generate itself to regulate its temperature, right? So what he was pointing out is that if you get out of a really cold plunge, and ideally, challenge your body and leaning into the discomfort of the cold plunge, and then get out to allow yourself a few minutes for your body to naturally normalize its temperature. When we challenge our body to do this, we're also helping to improve that part of our system, of our metabolism, that can regulate our body temperature. So I think that those little approaches are really awesome, like, and then maybe getting in the sauna a little bit later rather than going back and forth between the cold plunge and the sauna like immediately. But ultimately, it's like it's interesting to think about the role of the hormones on our temperature and metabolism. So I'm going to be doing more research into this. But my understanding is that when the estrogen falls, which is usually the time when women get migraines, like right around their period, and a lot of women track this when they're trying to conceive naturally, right? Because your temperature goes up right when you ovulate, and then it falls drastically after you've ovulated, and then your temperature is generally lower during your period, right? These happen to be the times when women get migraines the most. So although there's people who have migraines a lot of the time and headaches constantly, which is probably due to just overall low temperature, which is something Dr. Wilson points out, that you need a really accurate thermometer to gauge this, and you need to gauge the temperature at key times because, of course, eating food and the time of day, all of these things play a role in our temperature regulation, or the natural cycles that occur not only monthly for women, but on a daily basis. And so again, this is a very dynamic system to study. But overall, for people who check their temperature frequently enough to be able to know, to have enough data sets, enough data points to be able to confirm that the really sickest people who have poor digestive function and a lot of migraines tend to be people who have a overall lower body temperature. He was saying in the, as low as 93 in some cases, and some people not being able to get like above 97.6 degrees. And he said, ideally you want to be above 97.6. So even for those of us like myself who are largely symptom free, I'm still dependent on a lot of supplements, and I am going to be tracking this in myself and studying this, and also just doing more research above and beyond what he's provided to learn more about herbs and the natural plants and allies that Mother Nature has provided for us that may help our thyroid and liver function. And I think a lot of what's already in my protocols is probably already being supportive in that way, because anything that's going to support the thyroid by way of the liver is going to be supportive of our body's ability to self-regulate the temperature. But I just found that angle on it super fascinating. So hope you found this interesting too, and stay tuned, because this was a fun freestyle video, but I'll be giving you some more concrete information soon here, and also doing some more research. So thanks again for all the support that you've provided me, and the option you've given me to provide some scholarship to some of my clients, and we'll be in touch soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.